Rishus de Mora de Asre. V'chol hakuol hakudosh hazeh. It's a minik, Motzei Shabbos, to tell stories, Sipurei Tzadikim. The Eli Gerizhiner said it doesn't have to be dafke about the Baal Shem Tov. And it doesn't have to be dafke a story about it doesn't have to be Motzei Shabbos, it doesn't have to be a story about Parnusa. So we're going to talk about Reb Chaim Kanievsky in a little while. But since it is Motzei Shabbos, I was thinking how I can connect the Baal Shem Tov to Masechta Nuzir. And really, it's quite simple. It's not at all complicated. First of all, I would like to say that the Tama Menhugim brings down that if a person wants to make a Sudas Hoidua, you want to thank Hashem. Every person sitting here has something to thank Hashem about. If you came on your own two legs, you were able to walk yourself, they didn't bring you with a wheelchair, you didn't come with an aid, you didn't come with a stick, and you know where you were going. You knew, and you know where you are right now. You already have something to thank Hashem about. So, he says, the Tama Minhugim, if you want to make a Sudas Hoidua, you should make it Motzei Shabbos. Motzei Shabbos is a time that's mesugel to give thanks to the Rebbeinu Shalom, because Dovid HaMelech, the Rebbeinu Shalom told him that he's going to die on a Shabbos. Everybody knows it's a Gemara in Masechta Shabbos. Every single Shabbos, by the time he got to age 70, he knew when he gets to age 70, on the Shabbos, that's it, that's the end. We're lucky, we don't know. It's a big toivet that the person doesn't know. Imagine somebody knows that the next day he's going to get killed in a private plane crash, like those two Yidden from Cleveland on Thursday. Imagine he would know about it on Wednesday. So he wouldn't get on the plane probably. But every single Yid has something to thank Hashem for. And Dovid HaMelech on Shabbos, every Shabbos he didn't know which Shabbos it's going to be. So at the end of Shabbos, Motzei Shabbos, when he saw he's still around, he made the Malava Malki, he made the Sudas Hoidua. That's why the Malava Malki is called the Suda of Dovid Malki Mashiach. So Motzei Shabbos is a very mesugel big time to thank the Rebbeinu Shalom. So I want to thank HaRav Cinnamon for inviting me. HaRav Shloime Cinnamon. Yishikoyach for inviting me. It's always a privilege to be able to talk Torah to a tzibur of Yidden. And if there's a minyan, it's already Amukayim Shrias Hashchine. So I'm very privileged to be here, and I rarely say no when I'm asked to come speak. Even though English, I must admit, is not my first language. I gave a shiur for 3 years on Taryag Mitzvahs. It's in Yiddish, you could listen to it, it's on Kol Halushin. And my children made a very nice siyum at the end of the Taryag Mitzvahs, and they invited a Rebbe from Monroe, Kiryas Yoel Monroe, to come speak, because he sent me a lot of customers. I have a program where I test children under the age of Bar Mitzvah on all Taryag Mitzvahs. In Flatbush there's a yeshiva, there's a Flatbush yeshiva with a Hasidic Rebbe there, who brings me every year about a million of boys from his class that are under Bar Mitzvah, and I give them a test on all of Taryag Mitzvahs. Now this is not a simple thing, to know Taryag Mitzvahs by heart. And I have 25 questions that I ask, and if they answer 20 of the 25 questions, they get from me a very nice prize. The first question is, how many mitzvahs have to do with Pesach? If you know the answer to this question, it's between 40 and 50 mitzvahs. If you don't have at least 30, it means you don't know the Taryag mitzvahs. I give the prize anyway. But Why am I talking about Taryag mitzvahs? I'll tell you in a minute. But this Rebbe that came from Monroe, Kiryas Yoel, Satmar, so they asked him to speak. I just reminded myself about him because I said my first language is not English. So he got up and he said, the ladies there asked him to speak in English. So he said, my first language is Yiddish, and my second language is Petch. That's my second language. Petch, that's his second language. I hope it was a joke. There are 613 mitzvahs in the Torah. 600, everybody knows that. Do you know where it says in Shas that there are 630 mitzvahs in the Torah?
Marcus.
The Rav knows. In the
611.
It says Taryag mitzvahs. Dorish Reb Simloi Taryag mitzvahs Davchov Gimel Omed Beis in Malkus. Dorish Reb Simloi. Where else does it say Dorish Reb Simloi? Taryag mitzvahs. Says the Gemara, it says in the Torah, and then the Gemara says that Torah is 611 through Moshe, and 2 Nipi Agviru, the Rebbeinu Shalom gave 2. So now there are 248 mitzvahs esser and 365 mitzvahs lois esser. Now, generally speaking, every mitzvah, there's one mitzvah. For example, which one is the first mitzvah? The first mitzvah is Pri Urvu. The siman, Aleph, is Odom. The second mitzvah is Mila. The siman for base is Bris. And the third mitzvah is Gidanoshe, and so on. Every mitzvah has a siman. If you get used to remembering the simunim, you can remember all the mitzvahs. Every single mitzvah has a siman. But you have to listen to the Shiur. I'm not here to talk about Taryag mitzvahs. The reason I mentioned that there's Taryag mitzvahs is because one of the most fascinating things about the Taryag mitzvahs is that every mitzvah has a mitzvah, the mitzvah to give a bris milah, and then there's dozens of side points, side halachas that have to do with the extra mitzvah. There's a mitzvah to give everybody bris milah. Then the shaila is which day. Can you do it on Shabbos? If it's on the 8th day, and then there's priya. All kinds of different halachas that have to do with milah. But it's one mitzvah. When it comes to Nuzir, there are no less than 10 mitzvahs for Hilchis Nuzir, for the mitzvah of Nuzir. And to me, I think, my personal opinion, it's Soides HaTorah. It's Soides HaTorah. 10 mitzvahs. Every single detail about a Nuzir is a separate mitzvah. For example, the first one of the 10 mitzvahs, it's in Parshas Nusoi, and of course we can't go through all the different inyonim that have to do with Masechta Nuzir because it's impossible. It's a very lamdish Masechta. Rav Hutner, here in Flatbush, there was a big goan, Rav Yitzchak Hutner, Pachad Yitzchak. But his first sefer wasn't Pachad Yitzchak. It was Toilas HaNuzir. When he was a very young man, he made a sefer on the Rambam, Hilchis Naziris, a very lamdish sefer. And over there you can see the goinus of Rav Hutner. Naziris is a very, very deep sugya, and it's really fascinating and also enjoyable. Rashi on Masechta Nuzir is a shayla if it's really Rashi or not. It's a machloikis. The Shvus Yankiv says that it's Rashi, and he brings the rayas in the tshuva. The Kivege says it's not Rashi. And in the first daf of Masechta Nuzir, there's a Gillian Ashas where the Kivege says that it's not Rashi. It's a Talmud of Rashi. That's why most of the time when somebody brings the Rashi, we call Rashi because it's in the spot where Rashi is supposed to be, they call him the Mefarish, similar to Masechta Nedurim. Tosfos in Masechta Nuzir is also not the same Tosfos. It's Tosfos Shantz in Masechta Nuzir. And so on and so forth. There's a big shaila if Naziris is a Isa Chefse or if it's a Isa Gavre. And there's a big nafkemina, and it's a machlokes v'rishonim. But let me first, before I go further, let me tell you that there's 10 mitzvahs for a Nuzir. Mitzvah number 1, Shelo yishte hanuzir yain or kol minei sheichor. I also want to talk about whether today there is such a thing as Nazirus. If you look into the Chinuch, mitzvah Shein Samach Ches, which is the first mitzvah in the Chinuch, when he talks about the Taryag mitzvah, the first of the 10 that have to do with a Nozir, so he says at the end, the Noihages, it goes on, this mitzvah applies to Zechorim in a caves, Bisman Habayis, and Shaloi Bisman Habayis. So which means that it goes on today. There is such a thing today as becoming a Nozir. We don't know people, at least I don't know anyone around Flatbush or Borough Park. You do know? There used to be Shiur Yoshuv. Right, I met him.
Yosh's father.
Rabbi Shiur Yoshuv. Oh, but his father?
His father was the Nozir.
His father was the Nozir. I met Rabbi Shiur Yoshuv. You just answered me a big question. Because people told me that he's a Nozir and I didn't notice he looked like he had a haircut. So I was wondering, now you're telling me it's his father that was the Nozir. Yes, he lived in Beit Vegan and I once went to see him. I met Rabbi Shiur Yoshuv. They were telling me then that he's trying to become the Rav HaRoshi at that point. This is many years ago. So the Rogatchover, they say the Rogatchover was a Nuzir. The Rogatchover never took a haircut. He had long hair. There's a story to it. There's a sefer I brought along here called Sedei Tzofim HaMasechta Nuzir. And over there, if you look into the Agudah, you'll find the story with the Rogatchover. And a lot of other stories, which I don't want to take the time for all these stories. I want to tell you stories that you won't find here. So anyway, you could become a Nuzir today. Only you have a big problem. If you become a Nuzir today, you can't get out of it. In order to stop the Naziris, to finish your Naziris, you have to bring 3 karbonos. And since there's no Beis Hamikdash, you won't be able to bring the karbonos. You're going to have to stay a Nuzir the rest of your life. Why would somebody want to become a Nuzir? What is the reason why somebody becomes a Nuzir? And is it a mitzvah to become a Nuzir? I just said there's 10 mitzvahs. 2 of them are mitzvahs eser. 8 are mitzvahs lois eser. So is it a mitzvah for somebody to become a Nuzir? Or it's not a mitzvah to become a Nuzir? That's another shayla you'll see over here in the sefer. If it's a mitzvah to become a Nuzir, why would somebody want to become a Nuzir? So one of the Rishonim say it's because, you want to be frum, you want to be a porush, you want to tell the Rebbeinu Shalom, it's like going on a diet. And in Yerushalmi, it's even an arichis more than in Bavli. And if I want to take a minute, if I may, about Yerushalmi, I'm looking around and I see there's a lot of people in this room who are over 30. Some of you are over 40, some of you are over 50. There's probably some of you are over 60. And I have a feeling that very few of you are learning Yerushalmi. And maybe some of you already went through Bavli once or twice or 3 times or 4 times. I had the greatest chus to give Shiur on Bavli 7 times. I used to give 2 times a day. So I've given Shiur on Bavli 7 times. And I went to Rab Chaim about 10 years ago. And every time I came to him, I brought him a sefer. And he used to tell me, "Ihr sollt nicht hereinkommen on a neue sefer. Don't come to me without a new sefer." So for 30 years, every time I brought him a new sefer until I finished the whole Bavli. Then he said, "Was ist mit Yerushalmi?" And I'm thinking, Yerushalmi? Who learns Yerushalmi? That's not for me. I don't think I'm exaggerating. 20 times approximately he asked me about Yerushalmi and I ignored him. Until the 20th time I said to myself, this is really chutzpah. Reb Chaim is asking me I should do on Yerushalmi and I'm ignoring him. Where's the derech eretz? Just like I used to ignore him when he told me I should come live in Eretz Yisrael. So over there I had an excuse. I told him I can't go without my wife. My wife doesn't want to go there. What am I going to do? I can't go. But learn Yerushalmi, what's the excuse? I started in Tafshin Ayin Hey to give a shiur on Yerushalmi. I had 37 people sitting by the table in Kal Shomer Amunah every morning learning Bavli. And when I walked in one morning, I said to Rabbi Sai, in Yiddish I said it, "We're going to start tomorrow to learn Yerushalmi." Everybody left. As of today, there's 3 people that come to the Yerushalmi. They all left. Many of them are not here anymore. And that's okay. There's a lot of Shiurim in Baruch Park. You can learn Bavli. There's a lot of Daf Yomi Shiurim, Baruch Hashem. There may be probably more than 100 Shiurim in Baruch Park. And in Flatbush. But Laboisa, if you've never tried Yerushalmi, maybe there's one person sitting here, maybe you, huh? To start learning Yerushalmi.
They're learning here Yerushalmi.
So I'm talking, you're learning Yerushalmi. Oh, Brochus. Oh, I have a sefer in my car. You want to come? Art Scroll is excellent. Everything they do is excellent. They're next level. I send Art Scroll an email almost every single day because they have there's one address on the email. It's called Art Scroll Corrections. So on the Yerushalmi, come out every day. I find something that needs to be corrected, so I send it in to them because they did it a little quickly. And the Yerushalmi, once you get used to it, at the beginning it seems like a little bit hard because there's no Rashi, there's no Tosfos, and the Loshen is a little different, and sometimes on the same line you're not sure. Somebody says it's a kasha, somebody says it's a teretz, somebody says it's a new thing, and somebody else says it belongs to the previous Gemara, and it could become a little bit confusing. But once you get into it and you get used to it, it's beautiful. And there's so many things that you see in Yerushalmi that you don't have in Bavli. For example, in Masechta Brochus, Rabbi Yochanan Omar, it says in Brochus Bavli Daf Chof Aleph, Ve'lavai sheyispalel odam kol hayoim kulo. You hear this? Rabbi Yochanan says, Halavai, you should daven all day. I had a schus to attend the bar mitzvah of an enikel this past Thursday night. So my son, who's the father of the bar mitzvah boy, got up to speak. And he said, La boisai, my father was sitting right here when I became bar mitzvah about 20 years ago. He told me, start davening now. It's not too early. Daven now. You should have a good shidduch, and that you should have children, healthy children. So he told this to the whole oilam, start davening now. It's not too early. It's never too early to start davening. And Valavai sheyispalel odam, says Rabbi Yochanan kol hayoim kulei, because we are not in charge of anything. We don't have any. You don't have any say in what's going to happen in your life. Nothing. There's so many people who have their life figured out, exactly what they're going to do, what they're going to. And then everything is below us. It's nothing. It's only tefillah. You can only be mispalel. So in Yerushalmi it says 4 times in Masechta Bruchos, the Levai sheyispalelu dem kol hayoim kuloi, and then the Yerushalmi adds, Lefi she'ein tefillah mafsedes. No tefillah goes to waste. Maybe your tefillahs won't be answered right away, but eventually your tefillahs will be answered. Okay, let's go to the second mitzvah. I'm sorry?
You went to the Yerushalmi because...
Yeah, so I mentioned that in Yerushalmi there's an ariches, I think it's the 7th Peirik, in Masechta Nuzir. I'm in the middle of saying Shiur now in Yerushalmi Nuzir. You see, it's taking a little bit longer than Bavli, but Baruch Hashem, we started Bruchos. You have to remember that in Yerushalmi there's also Gemura on Peya Demai Kilayim Shviyas Trumis Maisris Maaser Shein Yichala Allah Bikurim. You don't have that in Bavli. And then you go to Shabbos Erev and invited. And Masechta Nuzir, in some Masechtas, Yerushalmi is bigger than Bavli, but most, it's smaller. In Brochos, it's bigger than Bavli. The Welt says that the Vilna Gaon said that the biggest Masechta in words is Masechta Bruchos. Now, the Vilna Gaon could not have said it because it's not true. Today we have computers, and with one push of a button you could check that the biggest Masechta is Shabbos. In words, it doesn't have as many dafim as Bava Basra. It's the second biggest in dafim, but it's the biggest in words. But it could be the Gaon was talking about Bruchos. Yerushalmi Bruchos is the biggest Masechta in Yerushalmi. And now I have a whole list that I have in one of my Sfurim, and I went over this with Reb Chaim, and he had the same list. That there's a whole bunch of things that people say in the name of the Vilna Gaon, and it's not true. For example, I'll give you another example. The Welt says, I'm going off the subject. Is that okay? Yeah, it's okay. So we're learning. Reb Chaim used to always say, when I used to ask him, how come this Gemara is next to this Gemara? It's nothing. One has nothing to do with the other. What's the connection? He used to always say, "Steht in Tosefte in Masechta Sanhedrin, Kol HaToyre Inyan Echad. Kol HaToyre Inyan Echad. Everything is one Inyan. It's Toyre. It's a difference. Have to have a connection. You have to understand the connection. And by the way, this has to do with Masechta Nuzir. In Shulchan Aruch and Orach Chaim in Siman Kuf Lamed Dalet, the Mogen Avraham says that when they pick up the Sefer Torah and they go Hakbeh, he brings the Shem Darizal, you should go very close and look at the Oisiyas. You should be able to read it. Why? Because your eyes are going to light up. You're going to see a oil. That's what he says, the Shem Darizal. Oir HaTorah. You're going to see the Oir HaTorah. I believe personally, Ani Akuten, that the Sugyos of Nazirus have to do with Oir HaTorah because it's Soides HaTorah. To put in so much koiches, make a whole Masechta and 10 mitzvahs from a Nuzir. Who becomes a Nuzir? Why does somebody become a Nuzir? So, I want to, because I may forget to get back to it, I want to tell you what the Baal Shem Tov has to do with Nazirus. The Gemara says, Kol hu roye Nazir bekil soite bekil kola Yazir atzmo min hayayin. So the Gemara says in the beginning of the Masechta that what is the connection between Nazir and Soite? Because if you saw a Soite, Bikul Kola means a woman who is accused of doing an Aveda, so when they bring her to the Beis HaMikdash, she's messed up. She gets messed up, so to speak. She turns into a very big problem. She gets very sick, to put it mildly. So if somebody sees this, it makes him stop drinking wine. Why? Because this lady, supposedly, because she drank wine. You know, most of the Goyim, they spend a lot of time in bars, and after they drink, that's when they go out with the girls, with the ladies. It goes together, drinking and znus, it goes together. So the Gemara says, if you see a soite bekilkula, watch out, this came all because she was drinking. Now what does it have to do if I see a soite who's doing bad stuff? What does it have to do with me? I have to stop drinking wine because that person did bad stuff. So this is where the Baal Shem Tov comes in. The Baal Shem Tov says that when you see somebody do something, it's an indication that you have to do tshuva. So the Baal Shem Tov was walking with the Talmidim once, and he saw on Shabbos that somebody was being Mechal Shabbos. I don't know what he did. He's smoking a cigarette on Shabbos. And the Baal Shem Tov stopped to think, and his Talmidim asked him, what is the Rebbe thinking about? He said, I'm thinking about what did I do? I must have done something that has to do with Chilul Shabbos, because if I saw what I just now saw, it's a message to me. So what did I do? He says, I have it. I know what I did. I saw that they were embarrassing in public a Talmud Chochem, and I didn't stick up for him. And a Talmud Chochem says in Zoyar, is B'bchinas Shabbos. That's the Chilul Shabbos that I did. That's why I saw this Chilul Shabbos. It's a message to me. By the way, the Lubavitcher Rebbetzin had a driver. And once the driver was driving her on one of the streets in Crown Heights, and they saw there was a big balagan taking place there. There's it looks like an argument, and people are coming together. So she told the driver to stop, and she went out to see what's going on. What happened over here? So the driver comes along with her, and he sees that she found out that there is a tenant living in an apartment who didn't pay rent for 2 years, and the landlord is throwing him out. And people got together, like, what's going to be? You're throwing out your tenant, is going to be on the street, maybe the marshal was there, I don't know. So it was a big action on the street. So she went and she asked these people, how much does the tenant owe? So they told her X amount of months, X amount of thousands of dollars. She took out a checkbook and she wrote a check. She says, here's a check for the rent, and don't throw him out. And she spoke to the tenant, please, it's not This is not a way, if you're living in somebody's house, you have to pay rent. Like you do everything else, you have to make sure to pay the rent on time. And when she got back into the car, the driver asked her, how come what's your business? You see what do you have to pay these people's rent for? She said, my father told me, her father was the Rebbe, the Rayatz. The Rayatz was a very heilige person. The Lubavitcher Rebbe who passed away, his father-in-law. He says, my father told me that when you see something, it's a sign that you are being now tested. What are you going to do about it? When you see something, it's a test. What are you going to do about what you just now saw? So if I had to pass by to see how a Yid is throwing somebody else, another Yid, out of his apartment, I was being tested. What am I going to do about it? So I figured I had to do something. So I wrote a check. And I want to say that this is an offene gemura. This is an offene gemura mesechta tainis. What do you want to say? I want to tell you something. I have a bungalow in a place called Twin Oaks, and it's in South Fallsburg. And in South Fallsburg, there's a supermarket called Landau Supermarket. So on a Thursday night, 2 years ago, I went with my wife to Landau's, and when we were coming to check out, the person in front of me was a young man there with a cart full of food for Shabbos that he's buying, and the total came to $279. He gave his credit card, and it didn't work. So he took out another card, and the second card didn't work either. The lady by the counter was a goiter. She said, listen, your card doesn't work, I'm really sorry, you can't take the stuff. And I'm standing there listening to this. So I took out my card, and I said, here, try this one, maybe this one will work. Since my wife is with me, it's probably working now. So the younger man was embarrassed. He said, it's okay. I said, don't worry about it, you'll give it to the next guy. So anyway, my card worked, and he took his stuff home. And that's what I was thinking at the time. If I'm standing here and I'm listening, I could have been by a different counter, or I could have been in the back of the store. Why am I listening? Why am I listening to this? Probably in Shemayim, there's now a din Torah about this guy, Friedman. And they say, you know what, let's give him an Isoyan, and let's see what he's going to do. Is he going to make believe like he doesn't hear, or is he going to take out his card? Now I'm going to tell you the punchline to this story. The next Thursday, a guy from this guy's bungalow colony calls me. He says, when are you going to Landau's tonight? And this is a true story. It's a Satmar bungalow colony. This is a true story. I'm a Samaisa. Anyway, so the Raya is from a Gemara in Tainis Daf Chof Aleph Omed Aleph. The Gemara says that Ilfe and Rabbi Yochanan was sitting next to a wall. Yeah? A wall that looked like it was going to fall over. They were sitting, it looked like they were having a picnic under this wall. And they decided they're leaving the Beis Medrash and they're going to work. They're going to find a good business. So there was two Malachim that were standing there. I'm sorry? No. There was two Maluchim. I'm sorry, I apologize. Maybe you're right. I'm not going to say no to the Rav over here. I don't think so, but maybe you're right. You know something? Probably in your Gemara, that's what it says. So, the Gemara says there was two Maluchim over there, and Ruchos is in Bruches Daf Yud Ches. No, and there was a chussid that went to a Beis HaKvuris at night. Yeah, okay, please look it up when I leave. I don't want to be embarrassed in public over there. It was the Yortzeit last week of Rav Pinchas Hirschbring. You heard of him? Rav Pinchas Hirschbring knew Shas Bal Peh with the Loshin. So I once spent a lot of time with him, and when I was talking to him, Shalom Aleichem, Kazlowitz. This is my classmate from Ber Shmuel, over 50 years ago. Wow. So makes Herden that Rav Pinchas Hirschbring b'toich hadvurim, he told me that he was by Reb Chaim Oizer when he was a bocher. And Reb Chaim Oizer told him a Gemara in Bava Basra daf Tzadik Ches. I told Reb Chaim Oizer it's not Tzadik Ches, it's Tzadik Tes. And Reb Chaim Oizer tells him, no, it's Tzadik Ches. So I told him, no, it's Tzadik Tes. So he tells me the story himself, Rav Pinchas Hirschbring. I told Reb Chaim Oizer, you know what, let's take out the Gemara and let's see who's right. So Reb Chaim Oizer says, no, don't take out the Gemara. You see this white beard? You want to embarrass this Yid with a white beard? No, don't take out the Gemara. You go home, you look it up yourself. He says, when I went home and I looked it up, I saw he didn't want to embarrass me. That Chaim Oizer was right. But anyway, he told me the story himself. So where was I? So the Gemara says there were these two Maluchim who heard that Ilfa and Rabbi Yochanan, they want to go work. They're leaving the Beis Medrash, and they were next to a wall. So one of them says to the other, let's take this wall and push it over these two guys, let's kill them. Which is a big kasha. Somebody's going to work, he's not Chayiv Misa. Why is he Chayiv Misa? So this kasha we'll leave on the side. Look into this day Tzoifim and Tainis Daf Chuf Aleph. So, Rabbi Yochanan heard these two Maluchim talking to each other, and the other one said, no, don't throw the wall over. One of these two is going to become a Rosh Hashiva. So Ilfa asked, Rabbi Yochanan asked Ilfa, did you hear anything? And he says, no, I didn't hear anything. Rabbi Yochanan, by the way, every blot in Shas, if you look carefully, you'll find that it's Ruach HaKodesh. How does the Gemara know this? The Gemara is telling us what Rabbi Yochanan is thinking. That's what the Gemara is telling you, what Rabbi Yochanan is thinking. That Rabbi Yochanan is thinking that if I heard and he didn't hear, I must be the one that's going to be the Rosh Hashiva. So he asks, Ilfa, did you hear anything? He says, no, I didn't hear anything. He says, you know what, I'm not going with you. You go yourself, and I'm going back to the Beis Medrash. So what do you see from here? Rabbi Yochanan is the one who heard something, so he knew that he has to do something. He has to go back to the Beis Medrash. So often the Gemara, the Chayre, by the way, don't worry about it. Ilfa went to business. When he came back, he said, you think I know less than Rabbi Yochanan? You can ask me any question in Kol HaTorah Kula. If I don't know, he went like he's showing, he went up to a spot on a ship, whatever, and he said, I'll jump down, which was very big sakona. Anyway, they asked him and he answered. So it's not a raya, you can go into business and you can still know. It's an ishkan raya. So let's go first to the next mitzvahs. And every single one of these mitzvahs, there's a tremendous amount of Torah. And I actually have it here, but I just never put it together. Shiur Samach Tes. Shelo yoichal anuzir anuvim lachim. There's a aveda for a nuzir. He's not allowed to not only drink wine, which is number one. He's not allowed to eat grapes. A separate mitzvah. The next one, that he shouldn't eat raisins. Shelo yoichal anuzir tzimoikim. That's raisins. And the next one is that he shouldn't eat the seeds of grapes, a separate loisese, shelo yoichel anuzir zera anuvim. And then the next one is that he shouldn't eat the peels of grapes, shelo yoichel anuzir klipas anuvim, because the Torah says michartzanim va'ad zag, and there's a machlekes in the Gemara which one is the peels and which one is the seeds. One is the peels, the other is the seeds. A separate loisase. And then there's another mitzvah for a nuzir that he's not allowed to take a haircut. Now, stam naziris, if somebody takes upon himself to be a nuzir, and he doesn't say for how long, he's a nuzir for 30 days. The shortest mishnah in all of Shas is in Nuzir Daf Hey. Stam naziris lamed yoim. Stam naziris lamed doesn't say shloishim. Lamed yoim. We have 3 words in one letter. This is the shortest mishnah in all of Shas. So, it's an Indian when you're sitting by a meal that you should learn something. So when I sit with my children, I say, Stam Naziris Lamed Yoin. So we just learned the Mishnah. Now, how long does that take? Now, if you want to learn another Mishnah, the second shortest Mishnah is in Psuchim. Ein Maftirin Achar HaPesach HaFikoim. Now we have already 5 words. Now, if you look, I don't know if you have the Sefer here, there's a Sefer called Mitzvah V'Oisa. You know the Sefer? Mitzvah V'Oisa. It's on mitzvahs. And in that Sefer, like the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, there's a whole list of these type of things. Which one is the longest and the shortest? Like the longest Mishnah. Which one is the longest Mishnah? Which one is the longest Tosfos? Which daf doesn't have any Gemara at all? There's such a daf in Masechta Nuzir with no Gemara, only Tosfos. Anyway, the next mitzvah. Oh, so I didn't answer his question. What if somebody? well, first let's go to the mitzvahs. The mitzvahs essay that he should let his hair grow. Every one of these mitzvahs has a lot of different haluches and mamurim in the Gemara. Is el shelo yikunes hanuzir le'oyel hameis is the next one, and then the next one is that shelo yitame hanuzir b'meis, and then the next one is that the nuzir should bring mitzvahs giluach and bringing karbonis. You see here already we have a lot of things together. He has to bring 3 karbonis when he finishes his naziris. If a person says, I want to be a nuzir, then he becomes a nuzir for 30 days. If he says, I want to be a nuzir for 30 days, then there's a difference in halucha. For example, if he says, I want to be a nuzir, he's a nuzir 30 days, and on the 30th day, he can already bring his karbonis and he can already cut his hair. But if he says, I want to be a nuzir 30 days, then he has to be a nuzir a full 30 days. He can only bring his karbonis and shear his hair on the 31st day. Now, if I said before that I believe that naziris is soides hatoida. Now think about this. One of the 3 karbonis that he has to bring is a shlomim. The shlomim he's allowed to eat. The meat he's allowed to eat. So they put the meat on a pot, and the meat is being cooked in the azura. It's being cooked. There's a lishkas hanazirim. There was a room in the Beis of English called lishkas hanazirim. Over there they would do what needs to be done for the nuzir. They give him a haircut over there, and then while the meat is being cooked, they would give him a haircut, and then the barber, whoever gave him the haircut, would sweep up all the hair, and he put it underneath the fire that is now cooking, the pot that's cooking over there, his karban shlomim is cooking on into that fire. Now before he did that, he would have to take some of the soup. He would have to take some of the soup out of the pot and put it into the hair, and then put the hair under the fire. Now if somebody can tell me what is the reason for doing this, I'll give him $100 right now. I'm trying to find somebody who talks about it. This is soides hatoida. How can we don't understand what this is all about. This is soides. Take somebody's hair, put soup on it, and then put it under a pot that's burning, and all the Jews who become a nuzir do it without asking any questions. That's what the Torah says. So now, if the nuzir drank wine when he wasn't allowed to, he gets 2 times malchus, because naziris is also a neder. So the lo yachal, he gets malchus for lo yachal for every single thing that he does that a nuzir is not allowed to do, and then a separate malchus for the wine. If he becomes tumei, so now he has already a problem, because if he becomes tumei, he has to go through the 7 days of being metired himself. You need the 3rd and the 7th day to spray on him the water of the afer of the pura, and then he has to bring his karbonis, and then he has to start all over again. Now there's a lot of discussion in the Masechta Nuzir about what if this happens on the 30th day, that we say Miksas Yoim Kirkuloi. What if somebody takes upon himself to be a nuzir for 100 days, and this happened on the 99th day, or if it happened on the 100th day? There's a big machlokes in the Gemara. According to one shita, he only has to count another 7 days. The 7 days that it takes him to become two, he doesn't have to start from scratch. According to another shita, he has to count another 30 days, because the minimum amount of hair that has to be shorn off for his naziris is 30 days, and he has to also cut his hair when he became tumei. So now, if he's cutting his hair when he became tumei, and he brought his karbonis because he became tumei, shnei toirim and shnei ben ayoyna, echad loyle vechad lechatis, and then he wants to become tuor, he has to have enough hair. So he has to have 30 days of hair. And these are the things you're going to be learning in Masechta Nuzir. It's yes, I don't know if you can call it a mitzvah. You know that one of the mitzvahs HaTorah is give a get to your wife. Now it's not a mitzvah to give a get. A lot of people don't give their wives a get. So the pshat is that there's no mitzvah to give a get. That if you want to get divorced, you have to do it according to the Torah. That's the mitzvah.
So how many mitzvahs are there?
One. There's only one.
And that is 11.
That's right. So this is that's why I said this is fascinating. Now, since the oilam over here, learned this week Masechta Nedurim, and generally these shiurim are what you're learning. It's not what's coming up. So I would like to ask you a shaila, if I may, about Masechta Nedurim. And the shaila is a ma'aseh shehoyu, a story that happened. And we're going to try to find the answer to this ma'aseh from what we learned in Masechta Nedurim in the last few days. But before we get to that, I would like to tell you that there's a group of questions that I prepared, 10 questions on Masechta Nedurim, and whoever's going to answer me all these 10 questions, I'm going to give him a very important present. It's going to be a matbeya from Reb Chaim Kanievsky, which is worth a lot of money today, because he's not giving any matbeyas anymore. And even when he was around, he wasn't giving matbeyas. It took me 30 years to convince him. You know, the Rebbes, all the Rabbonim, the Rebbes, they benched him at Beis. The Skelene Rebbe, he would take a bunch of coins and he would give a whole thinking. I don't know what he was saying there. He was saying things, and then you had a gebenched him at Beis from the Rebbe. I once spent a week in Florida with the Tosher Rebbe. So since I was with him for a whole week, I kept giving him matbeyas and dollars, and he was benching them. So I have a lot of matbeyas from the Tosher Rebbe. He's a very big man, a highly giving. So the Chaim, I tried to get him to do it, and every time when I asked him, he would say, "What is this? Like, what am I, a Rebbe? What, benching matbeyas?" Even his own son, who I tried to convince to do it, I told him, "You'll be able to sell these matbeyas." So he tried to get his father to do it. B'Shimoy, he didn't want to do it. One day, when I was there, and I was already learning Yerushalmi, I told Reb Chaim, "Makloi shel Rab Meir." It says in Yerushalmi that Rab Meir had a stick, and whoever had that stick, says the Pnei Moshe, he had a sgula, because he had a chayfetz from a tzaddik. So I told Reb Chaim, "Makloi shel Rab Meir," in Yerushalmi. So then I brought him a plate with matbeyas. So then he asked me, "So what should I say?" So I told him he should say, "Brocho v'hatzlocha." So he put his two hands on the matbeyas. I have a picture. He put his two hands on the matbeyas, and he said, "Brocho v'hatzlocha fa'ala matbeyas." So I have matbeyas from Reb Chaim. So if you want one, you have to answer me these 10 questions. I'll make a deal. Answer 5. Everything has to do with Masechta Nedurim. The first shaila is, if somebody makes a neder minhu oir, hu oir means the light. The light. If he makes a neder, you're not allowed to have hanor from the oir. Is he allowed to have hanor from the oir of the stars? Hanoider minhu oir, is he mutter beoiron shel koichovim? The next question. Hanoider minhu odoim. Somebody makes a neder from red. He's not allowed to have a noah from something that he's looking it up in the Durim. If something that's red, he's not allowed to have a noah from. Is he allowed to have a noah from the sun? The sun is red. Question number 3. If somebody makes a neder, he's not allowed to have a noah from his sons. Hanoider hanoah mibunim, from his sons. My sons, I'm not allowed to have any hanoah from them. Is he allowed to have a noah from the sons of his sons? From his B'nai Bunim? Anybody?
Yeah. Yes. It's the list of B'nai Bunim.
Who said yeah? So where does this say?
It's one of the earlier block in the... Right, the Sabara is that it's really from the son, but it's not. It's not considered.
Not considered the son.
Right. We have this.
Let's go fighter. Maybe we have a potential winner here. Somebody who goes to a chacham to be shoyel his neder, does he have to give him all the specifics of the neder? He has to say all the details of his neder, or he should say, "I made a neder, and please tell me that it's no neder." What does he have to do when he tells the chacham? If somebody makes it, what?
In the what we do every Rosh Hashanah, it says you don't have to. It says you have a
Yes,
Okay, I'm accepting it. So you're saying we do it at Rosh Hashanah. So let's go right there. Let's continue. Somebody who is moider hanua from a well, mimayon, from a well, is he allowed to toivel? If he has to have a tefillah shel mitzvah, is he allowed to toivel in that well? Is he allowed or not?
Winter to summer.
According to some of the women.
Who said winter or summer?
The same guy.
Oh, so what do you say? What-
In the
But the Gemara.
Well, in the winter he said yes, in the summer no. Correct answer. So we have another potential winner here. Where does it say?
Rosh Hashanah Chav Ches.
That's it. Rosh Hashanah Chav Ches. It's not in the Durim.
Yeah. The Ran bringt this in the Gemara.
Very
Ran
good.
bringt this in the
Very good. Hanoider mimei pros. Hanoider mimei pros. What's the din of different rivers? Is he allowed to have a nur? Hanoider mechaveiroi. If you make a nur that you're not allowed to have a nur from your chaver, is he allowed to spray on you the mechatos?
That's that Gemara.
Very good. So we have already 3 potential winners over here. Hanoider mipnei hu'ir. How long does he have to live in that city to be considered that he's part of that ir? What? Shloishim yoim. Okay, it's not bad. It's pretty good. Baltat and head, 1 minute. And how about somebody, a katana? We have a young girl who's not yet bas mitzvah, that when she gets married, it's only drabunon.
Our brothers.
The shaila is, can her husband be made for her nedurim? Can her husband be made for her nedurim of a katana? That's a good question.
Kedusha Mir. Kedusha Mir.
Doesn't necessarily make the door. She's overage.
The child is, what if she makes a neder? Can her husband be made for the neder?
But she could be, she's a mufla.
She is 12.
No, I'm saying she's a katana. She's not. She's still a.
Well, she's 11. She's 11. She has to be 11.
But because she has to be understand what a neder is. Yes. If somebody makes a neder that he's not going to eat, he's not going to eat bread. Noider min pas. And you can make bread from rice. He's allowed to eat the bread from rice. Yes or no? Is it considered bread or not? So now I'm going to answer all the shilas. I'm going to answer all the shilas. I have in my pocket.
Everyone is supposed to get it right.
I have in my pocket.
If you get it right, we'll
I have three coins in my pocket here. So one is going to be for the Rebbe, one is going to be for you, and one is going to be for you. Even on the suffix, if I happen to have 3, I only have 3, I'm sorry.
I thought everyone,
You can come to my house, I'll give you one.
I thought everyone gets the prize.
Everybody gets another prize, a card.
So let's hear the answers.
So the answers are as follows. I wanted to talk about Reb Chaim. The answers are as follows. Hanoider minhu oir. If he's mutter in the oil of kechuvim, the answer is osir. Sagimur in psuchim daf beis. Hanoider minhu odoim. If he's mutter beoil achame, v'vabasre pei dalet. The Gemara says alushin shamshe simkisehu. And Tosfos says the nafkamina is lanoider minhu odoim. And hanoider mibunim, if he's mutter b'bnei bunim, mutter. The Gemara is in Ubabasre daf kuf mem gimel. Hanisha lechuchem tzurich lefaret es aneder, tzamachloikis in gitten daf lamet ches. Hamuder anua men mayon from a well. Is he allowed to toivel? This was the correct answer that I got, only in the winter. And that's Rosh Hashanah daf kuf ches. Hanoider mimei pros, what's with the other rivers? Any river that's coming, that has water coming from the pros, he's osir. Kol maimois shebeoilam. And the Gemara is not in the Durim, it's in B'choyres daf nun ches. Hanoider mechaveiro, if he's allowed to be mazan mai chatos, the answer is Rosh Hashanah chuf ches, b'mei hakshumim is mutter, b'moi sachama is osir. Hanoider mibnei hu'ir. Kamu yudoir shom, how long does he have to live there? He should be considered b'nei hu'ir. May en anshe hu'ir, he has to be 12 months. Toishve hu'ir is 30 days. And the Gemara is b'babasra daf ches. Come to my house, I'll give you. And you know where I live. And ketane, that her nesuan is midrabunon, if her husband can be made for her nedurim. So machloikis and yivomis daf kuf ches. Rebbe Eliezer says no, Rebbe Yoshia says yes. Hanoider min apas is allowed to eat the bread from rice? Mutter. It's a Mishnah in Chala, Perik Aleph Mishnah Beis. Now, I would like to conclude, because it's probably more than, I'm already over time, no? Oh, 5 more minutes I have. 5 more minutes.
No, we have to answer this question.
Which question was it?
Tumas Meis.
I said, it's in the Gemara. The Gemara talks about it, it's a Mishnah, Tumas Meis. If you can become, it's a machlokes in the Gemara. And then I didn't talk about Nuzir as Shimshin, it's another thing. That is right, I didn't say anything, there's such a thing as a Nuzir Oilam and also a Nuzir Shimshin. And the difference is that a Nuzir Shimshin is allowed to be Metama to a Meis. But he's also a Nuzir forever, just like a Nuzir Oilam. And nowadays, if somebody takes upon himself to be a Nuzir, he's a Nuzir Oilam, because he has no Breda, he can't bring any karbonis. And like Atchile, he should go live in Eretz Yisrael. Like Atchile. And even Stam, in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, yes, if somebody makes a neder in Chutz Loretz, he should go to Eretz Yisrael. Okay, now, I just want to say a few short words about the Sar HaTorah. We lost the Sar HaTorah. I just want to say a few short words. Rabbi Isai, listen to this. Reb Chaim Kanievsky was somebody who in this room never went to Reb Chaim, pick up your hand. Who never went to Reb Chaim? So we have 4 people here that never went to Reb Chaim. So we have a very good group. So most of you were there, you had Seichel. You can't go to him anymore. What should I tell you? It's a shame I wasn't here last year. This is a bad one. Reb Chaim Kanievsky is something that it's possible, and he had a very close Gabba. His name was Rab Eli Yaman, and Rab Eli Yaman goes around repeating this in my name because he doesn't want to say it in his name. But I have been saying this for years, that in my humble opinion, of course it's just my opinion, and I don't know everybody that existed, all the Gedolei Yisrael that existed, but based on my small head, I'm of the opinion, it's not a fact, it's my opinion, that since the Vilna Gaon, it's very, very possible that there was nobody like Reb Chaim. It's very possible. Now let me tell you a few stories about Reb Chaim, so you'll get a little idea of what we're talking about. There's a Yid by the name of Yisroel Meyer Druk. Yisroel Meyer Druk was very close to Reb Chaim, and he has 6 yeshivas in Eretz Yisrael. He comes around probably over here. He's always out on the road, and he's a very, very charismatic Yid. So he writes in a sefer that he asked Reb Chaim that in Shulchan Aruch in Siman Kuf Ayin Ches, the Mishnah Berurah says that if you make Netilas Yadayim, you shouldn't wipe your hands on your clothing. It's kosher l'shikchen. You'll forget what you learned if you wipe your hands on your clothing. He asked Reb Chaim, is this only if I'm wearing my clothing? Or even if I have, let's say, my shirt is on a chair, I shouldn't be wiping my hands in my shirt. It's also kosher l'shikchen. That was the shayla. Funny?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay, I'm happy you're enjoying it. You have to enjoy the toilet. Anyway, he asked this shayla of Reb Chaim. Reb Chaim was sitting by his chair, and he put his hands on the shelf where he had his shas. He put his hand on top of the Gemara Bruches, and then he kept moving it. Shabbos, Erev, Psochim, Shkul, and Beitzer, Shoshoni, Yom Sekeh, Tainis, Megillah, Moed Kuten, Chagiga, Yevomis, Kisivit, Nedurim, Nuzisayt, Gittin, Kedushin. He kept going, but Bekamba, Bamsev, Basis, and Hedden, Malta, Shmita, by the Zud, Hoyde, Zwochim, Enochis, Chum, Bechoides, Krisis, Meile, till Nida. It took 7 minutes, he said. It took 7 minutes. And when he finished, he told him, I just realized that in all of Shas, when it says the word big doy, it means you're wearing it. When it says Kalov, it means you're not wearing it. So when you're not wearing it, it says Kalov. Over here, it says big doy. So it's only if you're wearing it. If you're not wearing your clothing, huh? This is Reb Chaim Kanievsky, classic Reb Chaim Kanievsky, with Apashtes. Now I want to tell you, Rabbi Isai, take out from your shelf when I leave, take out Gemara Bruches, Daf Chuf Hey Yom Beis. And Daf Chuf Hey Yom Beis in Masechta Bruches, the Gemara says, Man Tane Lehu de Rab Shimon ben Elazar. Where is Rab Shimon ben Elazar, who says, Kula Baise ke'dalet amas damya. The whole house is considered like dalet amas, which means if you wake up in the morning and you have to wash your hands, Negelwasser, which is called, you don't have to do it next to your bed. You can go to the sink as long as it's in the same room. The whole room is considered like dalet amas. That's the shittis Rab Shimon ben Elazar. So first of all, in Shulchan Aruch, the place can bring down the Rashbe, that this is shittas Rashbe. So Reb Chaim told me there's no such Rashbe. It's Rab Shimon ben Elazar. Reishi and Beis Aleph is Rab Shimon ben Elazar. There's no such Rashbe. Somebody made a mistake and thought that the Rashi means the Rashbe. There's no such Rashbe. But then, if you look at the Gilyon HaShas of Akiva Eiger in Bruchas Chufei Yom Beis, Rashi on these words, Mantan al-Hud Rab Shimon ben Elazar, Rashi says, Lo yudati heichani. I don't know where this Mekor of Rab Shimon ben Elazar is. I don't know. Lo yudati. I don't know. Chufei Yom Beis in Bruchas. Akiva Eiger and Gilyon HaShas, in my humble opinion, it's the longest Gilyon HaShas in all of Shas. Akiva Eiger has a list of 44 places in Shas.
Shabbos also, yeah. Shabbos also.
He has 44 places in Shas where Akiva Eiger, where Rashi says, Lo yudati, I don't know. Somebody asked, Akiva Eiger is trying to show us that Rashi doesn't know. He said, no, he's trying to show us that Rashi is not embarrassed to say, I don't know. You also shouldn't be embarrassed. If you don't know, you say, I don't know. Rashi could be quiet and not say anything. Nobody would know he doesn't know. But Rashi is telling you, I want you to know. I don't know. Maybe you know, I don't know. In the Masechta Me'ila, there's several places where Rashi says, I don't know, and Tosfos says he doesn't know. It's a Tosefta. It seems like Rashi didn't have the Tosefta. But anyway, the point I want to make is, there's a sefer right up there. I don't know why you put it on the top shelf. It's very high. Right up there, there's a sefer called the Didiha V'Uvde. Now, if you go to that sefer,
Right here.
oh, there's one over here too. Right, I can take it back home. I see you guys don't need it. So over here, in this sefer, I don't know by heart which page, but it's one of the beginning. Oh, here it is. It's on page 56. On page 56 in this sefer, there's a picture of Reb Chaim Kanievsky's Gemara Bruches Chof Hei Omed Beis. He's already looking it up. This is a picture of Reb Chaim Kanievsky's Gemara. Can I give him the paper? You have one already. Okay, I should leave it? There's one over there, right up there. So, take a look. This is a picture of Reb Chaim Kanievsky in the bottom. 69 more places in Shas that the Akiva Eiger missed. Oops, I'm sorry. Now, you have a hasber? Do you have an explanation for this? What's going on? Look. 69 more places in Shas. What?
Where Rashi says.
69 more places where Rashi says, Lo yudati, that Akiva Eiger missed. Now, this needs an explanation. I mean, Akiva Eiger, when you're talking about Akiva Eiger, you're talking about Akiva Eiger over there. I gave a drosha in there's a koilel over here for business people, koilel, East 7th Street, I think it is, on Chanukah. They made a nice mesibah, and I gave a drosha there. So I told them this. One guy started screaming at me, he got so upset. How could you say such a thing? I say, what do you want from me? I'm showing you Hagos Reb Chaim Kanievsky. I'm showing you Ksav Yad. So, but it needs an explanation. I have an explanation. First of all, I showed it to a big Talmud Chacham in Williamsburg. His name is Reb Sholem Kraus, and he was insisting it's not the same. It's different. I said, how's it different? In all these places, Rashi said, Lo yudati. Well, Reb Chaim Kanievsky didn't think it's different. I walked into Reb Chaim one day 30 years ago and I asked him, how come Reb Akiva Eiger in Gilyon HaShas asks a kasha, and this kasha says in Tosfos? Akiva Eiger didn't see that Tosfos asked this kasha. So Reb Chaim tells me, Nitmer vi ein mol. It's only once in all of Shas. Shabbos Kuf Yud Beis Umed Beis. Didranaschol Rebbe Shunisu Lo Nisandlu. So over there's a kasha in Gilyon HaShas Reb Akiva Eiger. Tosfos has the same kasha. I asked Rav Yashiv, he tells me, I'm not cooking in them Tosfos. We got to look at this Tosfos. So when I asked Reb Chaim, he right away knew which Tosfos. And Reb Chaim said, you sure that Reb Akiva Eiger later saw that the Tosfos is asking it? But he wrote it down already on the side of his Gemara, so he let it stay there. And later they took his Gemara and made them with Gilyon HaShas. But I have another explanation which may be true. There's a fellow who lives today in Lakewood, used to live around here, that sold atikot. Atikot means kisve yodois. Letters from Gedolei Yisrael, which, by the way, Reb Chaim Kanievsky's letters and his svorim, the hagos that he wrote on his shas, I don't know in the history of Klal Yisrael there's been anyone that his things are being sold for the prices that Reb Chaim Kanievsky. Did you see there was an article that they sold his Yerushalmi for $5 million?
Making machlokes.
Yeah, $5 million somebody paid for Reb Chaim's Yerushalmi. It's only like 6 volumes. It's almost $1 million a piece. And like he says, they're making machlokes. People are fighting over it because Reb Chaim, there probably was never a Gadol B'Yisrael who saw as many people as he did. There must have been hundreds of thousands. The 600,000 people that were by his Levaya were all in his house once. And if the police, I was by his Levaya. I left Motzei Shabbos and I got there, was already almost over, but a little bit in the cemetery I still made. So all those people that were by the Levaya, they had to come in the morning because the police closed off the whole Bnei Brak, all the highways around Bnei Brak. They said that if they wouldn't have closed off all the highways, there would have been 2 million people by this Levaya. You were only able to make it if you came early in the morning, a few hours before. But anyway, there was a salesman who sells these things who called me up one day, many years ago, and he told me that there's a Yid that went into a shul on the east side, and he saw 4 gemuris on the bottom of the shelves full of dust, and he opened them up, and he saw haguas. Somebody wrote on the side, somebody wrote notes, and it looked like it's a Talmud Chacham who wrote it. So he asked the Gabbai if he can take these gemuras. Nobody's even touching them. It's so full of dust. So the Gabbai said, you could take it, but give something for the shul. So he gave the shul $100, and they let him take the 4 gemuras. He went to a Yid in Borough Park by the name of Shemaryoi Zitronenbaum. You know?
Big mumche.
A big mumche, he knows. The same name like Reb Chaim. Reb Chaim is also, his name is Shemaryoi Yosef Chaim. Siach Hasudah. So Reb Chaim, by the way, look out for a sefer. I'm putting out a sefer by the Yortzeit of Reb Chaim. It's going to be called Besoid Siach. It's about different things that I heard from him in the last 38 years. It's hundreds of things. Anyway, so Reb Chaim, Rav Citronenbaum, he looked at this Ksav Yad, and in 1 minute he said, this is Rebbe Kiva Eger. This is Rebbe Kiva Eger. They gave it to an expert in Lakewood who knows how to sell these things, and he put it into nice leather bindings, and they sold it to somebody in Lakewood, I know his name, for $400,000. $100,000 it was a good investment. So before he sold it, he thought maybe I'm a customer. What? I don't know if he's mechuyev, but he didn't go back. What?
It was never there. They didn't know how it works. You have to know.
He asked if he was mechuyev to go back to the shul.
Is it there?
That's a good shaila. It's a good shaila. I don't know the answer. I don't think so, because when he offered to buy it, he said that he sees there something, he doesn't know what it is, and he took a chance. I don't know what the halach is. You have to go to a rav, but I'm sure he didn't go. There would be a dentaire if he would go tell them. Anyway, here, listen to this. So when he brought it to me, I called this Shemaryoi Zitronenbaum, and he came to my house to look at it, and I told him, I'm looking at these haguas. It looks like very simple haguas. Doesn't look like Rebbe Kiva Eger. It says it's like his handwriting, but he's writing that this Gemara is also brought down in another place, and this Gemara Tosfos brings it in this Masechta. It's very nice, but it's not Rebbe Kiva Eger. So he told me that as far as he could see, he wrote this when he was a bucher. This is written when he was a young boy. This wasn't written when he was a Rebbe Kiva Eger. So he says, because we looked into Gilyon HaShas, a lot of the aguas in the Gilyon HaShas are coming from that Gemara. And if you look carefully into the Gilyon HaShas, you'll see a lot of the Gilyon HaShas is simple Simple Ayin Shom, you can see it also there and there. Then there's also Reb Kiva Eiger, Tzurchien. So I think that this is going to be the answer to our Shaila. How did Reb Kiva Eiger write the same Shaila that says in Tosfos? He wasn't Reb Kiva Eiger then yet. He was 14 years old. How is it that he wrote 44, Maram Mekoyim said Reb Chaim wrote 69 more? Well, when Reb Kiva Eiger was 14, he remembered 44. Reb Chaim wrote it when he was 65. So I think this may be an answer. Now, if you want to hear more, I'm ready to stay. If you want to go home, I get to work. Thank you for listening. I want to hear more. I'll tell you more. No problem. I brought with me a sefer. It's called Orchos Yoshir. Orchos Yoshir is a Musar sefer that Reb Chaim wrote. He writes in the beginning that since so many people ask him for advice and they ask him for different eitzes, so he figured he'll sit down and write what he has to say, so it should stay. In Ois, it goes according to the Aleph base. In Ois Reish, he talks about Ruach HaKodesh. And he says here 3 lines, and I believe personally, my personal opinion, he's talking about himself. Now listen to this. There's a Yid in Bnei Barak, his name is Rabbi Yoel Maklev. He's a Rav. Rabbi Yoel Maklev is a Rav. Rabbi Yoel Maklev told a friend of mine, a Svardish Geman by the name of Rabbi Yitzchok Oyef Tzion. Rabbi Yitzchok Oyef Tzion was very close to Reb Chaim. He went to him every day from Yerushalayim for maybe 15 years. When anybody would call me and ask me if I can get an answer to a shayla from Reb Chaim didn't have a phone. Reb Chaim spoke on the phone 3 times in his whole life. And he wasn't on his own phone. He didn't have a phone in the house. So only 3 times he spoke on the phone, and when somebody wanted to get an answer to a shayla very quickly, I would call Yitzchak Oyef Tzion because I knew the next day he's going to him, and he would send me back a text message. The Rav said, this is what he should do. So Rabbi Yoel Maklev says he was standing by Reb Chaim. Reb Chaim had Kabbalah school 3 times a day, usually after Shachas Mincha and Ma'ariv. There would be hundreds of people. Sometimes the lines would go for 2 blocks. But everybody got in at the end. At the end, everybody got in. I think so, at least. Anyway, Reb Chaim, Yoel Maklev is standing there on the side, and Reb Chaim is sitting by his table, and people are going through. And somebody comes to Reb Chaim, he says he was just diagnosed with a machle, with a terrible illness, and he doesn't know what he should do, if he should take the chemo, if he shouldn't take the chemo. Whatever the Rav says, he's going to do. And Reb Chaim says, don't take the chemo. You're going to have a refuah shalema. 5 minutes later, another person comes with the same thing, and he asks Reb Chaim that he was just diagnosed with a machle, and the doctor says he should take the chemo. He wants to get a brocha from Reb Chaim. Reb Chaim says you should take the chemo, you should have a refuah shalema. After everybody leaves, he asks Reb Chaim, what's going on? 2 people ask you the same question, and you give them the different answer. Now, before I tell you what he said, there's a Yid in Bet Shemesh, his name is Arn Yoshua Passin. I think he's here in America now. He gave a shiur in Shiur Toida last week. I know that he came to visit me. So Arn Yoshua Passin writes a lot of sforim. He's a very big genius who remembers everything. So he wrote a sefer called Poisach HaSudechu. He gave me the sefer. I open up the sefer, I see that he writes to Reb Chaim the following shaila, that somebody had a daughter, and her name was Esther. And now they had another daughter, and they want to give her name Hadassah. Now the Gemara in Megillah, Daf Yud Gimel says, Hadassah Zu Esther, it's the same person. He wants to know if you should give the name Hadassah, or since he has already a daughter, Esther, he shouldn't give the name Hadassah. So Reb Chaim answers, Lo Kedai. Lo Kedai. Don't give the name. So he sent a letter to Reb Chaim that he saw in a sefer that somebody asked Reb Chaim that he had twins, 2 girls, twin girls. He wanted to give one a name Hadassah, the other a name Esther. And Reb Chaim answered, Ein Kapede. There's no problem. You can give both names. So he asked Reb Chaim, were you choizer? Im HaRav choizer, did you change your mind? This person, you told him Lo Kedai, and here you're saying Ein Kapede. Reb Chaim answers, Kefi shenoisnim befi min hashamayim, kach ani oine. What they put in my mouth, b'shamayim, that's what I answer. Whatever they put in my mouth, b'shamayim, that's what I answer. In this sefer on Ruach HaKodesh, Reb Chaim writes these words: Ro'inu harbe pu'umim. Eitzel hagedoilim, sheleechot oinim kein, ilasheni oinim sheyasa lehepech. Dezeh hakoi lefi ma shenoisnim min hashemayim befiv. וזה גם כן מעין נבואה קטנה, כמו שכוסו, אשר יושים השם בפי, אויסוי אשמוי לדבר. ויש הרבה פעמים שברכס חוכם ועצוסוי מסקיימת, משום שמסחבנו לשם שמיים. I think he's talking about himself. He's talking about himself. Now, I just want to say one more thing. I asked his Anikel this question. What's going on? These two people, how was he saying one person? So the Anikel told me, wait a minute. If you listen carefully, they didn't say the same thing. One of them said, Rebbe, I don't know what to do. Should I take the chemo or should I not take the chemo? So since he's asking him what to do, Reb Chaim feels that he has Siyata D'Shmaya. If he's going to tell him not to take it, he's going to have a refuah shlema without it. The other guy didn't ask him what to do. He said, the doctor told me that I need the chemo, I need a brocha. So I gave him a brocha. It should be with Hatzlacha. He's not going to tell him, he's not asking him what he should do. Then you should be Matzliach. Reb Chaim Kanievsky went to Koil Chazon Ish for 50 years, every single day. Every single day he went to Koil Chazon Ish. Koil Chazon Ish, to get to Koil Chazon Ish, you have to pass a street called Rechoiv Bar Tanura in Bnei Brak. Somebody came over to him and asked him, Slicha, where is Rechoiv Bar Tanura? He said, I don't know. He said, how could be you don't know? You go to this street for 50 years, you go on the street. He says, I never looked at this street. I know I have to go 3 blocks and make a left. So the person asked him, I don't understand. The Gemara says that Shmuel, he knew all the streets of the city of Nardua where he lived. That's right. Nehirili Shvieli Dirikia Kishvili de Nardua, said Shmuel. So Shmuel, he knew all the streets. You don't know the streets? He said, if you look into Bava Metzia Pei Hey, you'll see Shmuel was a doctor. So he had to make house calls. So he had to know the streets. I don't have to know the streets. It's not important to me to know the streets. This was Reb Chaim Kanievsky. The first 50, I went to Reb Chaim for every 2 months for 30 plus years, 36 years about. Every 2 months I was in Eretz Yisrael. My wife used to say that I'm addicted to Reb Chaim. So I used to go, and sometimes I would stay for Shabbos. I tried not to stay, I had small children, but when I stayed for Shabbos, he would invite me to come eat with him for Shabbos. So every time, except once, he always told me to sit next to him. Once, there was a gentleman there by the name of Psachia Fried. You know Psachia? He's a Rav in Borough Park. So I saw that he felt Psachia was more important to me. So Psachia, he put him next to him. He told me to go next to Psachia. And he also gave Psachia benching by that meal, which he never did. He always gave me the benching. So I saw he held Psachia in very high esteem, and he told me after the meal, Psachia, that he's a moil, and that Chaim recommends people to use him, and many times he comes from Eretz Yisrael special to do a bris, because somebody called them and he said, Reb Chaim said, you should call me. Yeah. So anyway, so I was sitting by Reb Chaim by a meal, and he's finishing his chont, and he left over a little chont. So I asked him if I can finish his chont because I want to eat his shirayim. He looks at me and he says, shirayim? What's that? Now Reb Chaim knows what shirayim is. And he knows that the Rebbes give shirayim. Chaim is very sharp. So he says, what's this shirayim? You're like, come on, what am I, a Rebbe? What are you making me into a Rebbe? What's going on over there? So I tell him, if you eat shirayim from a tzaddik, it's a zgula to remember your learning. He says, where does that say? I say, it's often a Gemara. He tells me, Seni doa za Gemara. I tell him, anschuldig drauf, siyadu. Okay, where's the Gemara? So I tell him, it's in Hoirius Daf Yudala. In Hoirius Daf Yudala, the Gemara says that if somebody eats shirayim from a mouse, he's going to forget his learning. Why? Because a mouse is arusha. He even bites into people's clothing and he ruins their clothing even when he's not getting any nourishment from it. So I told Reb Chaim, Midr toive is meruba midis perunios. So if you eat shirayim from a tzaddik, you're going to remember your learning. he took his plate and he pushed it towards me. You can eat the shirayim. And I think from that day on, they started eating shirayim by Reb Chaim. One more thing and I'm done. The last thing. By benching, there's a horachmon that you say a brocha for the balabayis. So part of the brocha is that you give him a brocha v'yihir nechosov. Yes, he should be masriach with his assets, his nechosim, and it should be kroivim leir. They should be close. You shouldn't have to travel. So I asked him after benching, what's the Rav's nechosim? So he said, my svarim. I said, what's kroivim leir? The printer should be kroivim leir. With this, Rabbi Isai, I thank you for listening. You should all have shefa, brocho, atzlocho, simcha, v'nachis. And are we going to dance now?